everybody. Welcome again to the Seatuck Digital Online EcoCarnival. I know a little different format today, a little bit of just bumping from one thing to the next. So my name is Peter Walsh. I'm the Education Director here at Seatuck. I am at the South Shore Nature Center today. And my part, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about a mystery. What if I told you someone had invented a machine that was powered by the sun, that it has an automatic thermostat and humidifier, it makes its own fuel out of water and carbon dioxide, it's powerful enough to split a rock or to pump water, tons of water, it produces oxygen, water, food, and fuel that we use, and the best part is, rather than polluting the air, it cleans it and beautifies the surrounding. Can anybody guess what I'm talking about? It's a perfect thing. It's a tree, right? So I am talking about trees, and really all plants in general, but I'm really going to focus on trees right now. Trees are incredibly powerful, and for most people, if I talk about a tree, this is what you think of, right? The huge, thick trunk of a tree. So what's the job of the trunk? Well, if we look up, the job of the trunk is to hold up the branches and twigs and push the leaves, the canopy, the crown of the tree up towards the sunlight. And this trunk does more than just support the tree. This trunk holds all of the cells that transport water and mineral up from the roots up into those leaves in the sky. All right, so they're moving the food then in the form of sap that's produced up high all the way back downward. And those channels are called the xylem and the phloem, and those are underneath here, just below the bark of the tree. If you've ever seen a tree cookie, so we have the rings of the tree. So that's really the skeleton, the heartwood of the tree. So every year, I know they're hard to see on this, but every year that this tree grows, underneath that trunk, those cells are growing, that xylem and phloem, and they're building another ring of life. The bigger that ring, the better the year was. But the only ring that's really working are those outer ring, that very outside, just underneath the protective bark of the tree. So the rest of the wood underneath here is just there to support this and hold it up. So this huge, powerful machine, just that little bit of cells keeping the whole thing going. So super important, they're added every year, and the bigger those rings are, if you ever see a tree that's been cut, like these over here, this is another one that's hard to see, but the bigger these rings are, I don't know how well that'll show up on the camera, the bigger the rings are, the better the growth year was, the more nutrients and minerals and water was available to trees. Here's a better one. You can really see the rings on this one here. All right. So underneath the ground, we say underneath the ground is where the business is happening. So anybody know what's underground? It's the roots, right? And I always say, they're the most aggressive parts of the tree. So they're the ones that are down there, they're pushing, they're moving, they're gathering everything up. To give you an idea, like these oak trees that are here behind me, these oak trees, a 3-inch diameter root from one of these oak trees are so powerful that it could move a 50-ton boulder out of the way. I'm sure you've seen this around anywhere you go, where the roots push up sidewalks, they'll break up concrete. If you're unfortunate enough to have one super close to the foundation of your home or a building, they can even damage that. They are incredibly powerful. So, but they also, besides pushing and growing, their real function is to anchor the mass of that tree, the weight of the tree, and support it. They are absorbing water and nutrients from the surrounding soil, and they do that not just through their main roots, but miles of tiny fibrous hairs that come off of those. And if we look at the different trees, we have the conifers here, and these conifers they have really shallow roots. And our conifers, if you don't know, these are our needle-based trees. These are our softwood-based trees. These are trees that will, for the most part, keep their needles all year long, and they're able to survive through the winter. And we'll talk a little bit about that. But they do that because they protect themselves really from dehydration. And then our deciduous trees, they have much more spreading roots, deeper roots, and most often, wherever they can, they have really deep tap roots. And a taproot is a root that would grow straight down right underneath the trunk of the tree to help anchor and balance it. Next time we have a big storm on Long Island and you see the trees that fall, those are often the ones that don't have a well-established taproot. We're on the south shore of Long Island where we are now. You just saw Allison, she's not all that far from me at the pond. That's our groundwater. So if I was to dig a hole beneath my feet, at just a couple of feet, we would hit water. So the trees that we have here on this property tend to not have deep taproots, just for the reason that they don't want to be sitting in that water. So those roots, they're taking up the nutrients, they're taking up the water, they're pumping it up into the canopy, and then the amazing process of photosynthesis happens. And that's where it converts water and carbon dioxide into starches and sugars. And they do that with the aid of chlorophyll and the sunlight. The nice part for us is we also get the byproduct of oxygen. And one of the cool things that I always found to be incredibly cool is, I wonder, how many of you have ever, stood at a window and you breathe on it and you fog up the window? Often you can write something on it. I know that my kids love to sit there and write on the window doing that. They're shaking their heads now. So that's your breathing, that's respiration. And the air that you see is the water being released by our lungs as we breathe and forming as condensation on the colder glass. Well, trees are doing the same thing. It's called transpiration. So that water that comes up travels up the trunk of their tree and gets filled. They are then able to take all of that and release it out. A big oak tree like this can release almost 300 gallons of water a day into the air that it's taken up from the ground through transpiration. Interesting. It's just an incredibly cool function. And then the trees here, especially on Long Island, are super adapted to surviving the seasons. So right now we're in spring. If we look up, our deciduous trees, our trees here, our hardwood trees that are losing their leaves in the wintertime, the buds are here, and the buds are just starting to swell and pop. If you're over more towards the middle of the island on the North Shore, they may already be popping. But here they're just getting going, and they're starting to swell out. Makes my nose run. So those leaves will fill themselves out as the spring goes, and they're taking that moisture up and start to open up. As we move into summer, they'll start flowering, then they'll use that then to just make their leaves bigger and start to produce by the fall their food. So the food, what we think of as their food, I always say, love apples and cherries, all these great fruits, peaches that come from trees. Well, we love the fruit. It's really just a mechanism to transport their seeds, so to entice things to eat their seeds and help move it away from the tree. So they're taking the energy that they've made with their leaves all summer through photosynthesis, putting it down in their roots. And I always say they're spending the energy that they've created. And they're spending it on growing bigger, growing taller, growing more roots, and producing more seeds. Also in the fall, they'll start the process of shutting down. Now, trees lose their leaves in the fall for a variety of reasons. The main reason that they're doing it is conservation of water. There's not a lot of available water in the wintertime. Most of what hits the ground freezes. There's often less of it available to plants. So if plants stayed active all winter long, they would dehydrate and die. Plus the fact if we had a lot of snow, our deciduous trees couldn't carry that snow load with the leaves and their branches would break. So to protect themselves from all of this, they drop their leaves, they send their energy back down into the roots for the winter, but before they completely shut down, they form their buds, the future leaves, and those buds will sit there all winter long waiting for a day like today, that right after the April rains, that energy pushes up, the sunlight comes out, it swells those buds and really starts to pop those leaves open. And if you watch the leaves over even the next week, they'll go from these little tiny buds and these little flowers to completely filled out leaves and ready to go. It's a pretty exciting story about trees. So I have an activity that I'm going to try to task you to do, something that hopefully you love. We're going to do some bark rubbing. So I'm going to get some tools. So to do bark rubbing, you're going to need a crayon. Now I'm lucky enough to have some big fat crayons. These are awesome. But I also have a small crayon. If you only have access to a small crayon, even a pencil would work. What you want to do with this, here, let me get my assistant over. You want to help? Come on over, bud. This is Kieran. He's my faithful assistant. So if you have a small crayon, you just want to try to peel off some of the paper, right? So can you peel some of that off? So if you peel it off, make sure you take the paper and put it in your pocket. You don't throw it on the ground, right? We're thinking about the earth. And then the other thing, if you have some big ones, you could peel those. So I'm going to fill you in on the biggest trick to successfully doing a bark rubbing. You want to take the crayon and you want to squeeze them tight in your hands. So I'm going to finish doing this while I'm talking. Any guesses on why you might want to do this? This is the great hidden secret of bark rubbing. Any guesses? Okay. So, all right, I just have to tell you then. So the way that you want to do this is the heat from your body kind of warms the crayons up a bit, makes them a little bit softer, and gets them ready to go. So then once they're ready and they're warmed up, you need a piece of paper. Any paper will work. Copy paper will work. Construction paper is a little tough. You want to use a thin paper, so copy paper works really well. If you're fortunate enough to have some blank newspaper print around, you're super golden. But if not, copy paper works. And you want to take it over to a tree. Want to go to this one with me? Yeah. Here, we could even do this one right here. Yeah. So you hold this, you want to hold it and I'll rub? Yeah. All right. So once you've been holding it, you have to have a partner or somebody hold it for you, and you take it and you get a rubbing. And the cool part is if you go out around your house or in your yard, is the texture of every tree is different. So here's a bark rubbing. This is from an oak tree here. And this would look totally different. If we took another piece of paper and we went over and we held it here, this bark from this white pitch pine would look very, very different. Totally different texture to the bark. And if you do this, a darker color works much better than a light color. You'll get a better contrast. So grab some paper and do that. The other thing that I'd like you to do, oh, that was a cool visitor. Yeah, is to do a leaf rubbing. So you can collect some leaves. We've already collected a couple. And what we want you to do is you can put them down. Now this is the interesting part. There's not really great green leaves now, but the leaves have the top side, and I always called it the bottom. You want to do your leaf printing on the bottom side of the leaf. So the rough side is up. You put your piece of paper over it. You want to slide one of those under there too, buddy? Flip this one over. And same thing, you're going to take your crayon. You want to do the blue one? Have somebody hold it. Get yourself a leaf rubbing. She always comes out. Awesome. Whoa, look at that. 2 colors. Pretty cool. And you could try it with different leaves, different textures, try them in different directions and see how they work. Sometimes if you get a piece of wood, yeah, this one has been held and used so many times, it's so smooth now. So that's a little bit of facts about trees. The cool part about Long Island is we have so many different types of trees in different areas, different zones. So get out around your house, try to do a bark rubbing, do a leaf rubbing, post some pictures up for us. You know, the other thing I want to tell you is, as the day goes on, if you click, some ospreys right above us, if you click on the notification bell up at the top, you'll be notified of when all of our live videos come up for the rest of the day. So we're lucky, right after I go off, we're going to have the Suburban Brothers Band's going to come on and play some songs for us to get through the day, and let in some ospreys singing. So with that, I'm going to sign off, and thanks everybody for watching. Enjoy the earth.